Welcome back to the Positive Gains Podcast. Today, my special guest is Miss Natalie Daise. If you are like me in your 30s, you probably have seen the hit TV show Gullah Gullah Island. But Miss Natalie is much more than Gullah Island. She's also a storyteller. She has a lot of art that we're going to talk about. So I'm so excited. Miss Natalie, thank you for being on.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So, little backstory. My mom was a big believer in not really television per se, but more of like you're influenced by what you're watching, right? So when I was a younger kid, she wanted to make sure that I was watching something that was beneficial, educational. So the lineup for me was like Rugrats, Are You Afraid of the Dark, all the Nickelodeon stuff. But she would pop her head in and she would see Gullah Gullah Island on. And she really enjoyed, the fact that I was watching it because it was a good interaction. You were learning how to get along with other people. A lot of different people were represented. There was, the art and the science part of it. So yeah, Gullah Gullah Island was huge for my childhood. And I'm so happy that it's back on Paramount streaming now, if you guys didn't know that. So yeah, I wanted to talk Gullah Gullah Island first. How did that come about? And, the magnitude of where it's at.
Wow. Okay. When I talk about how Gullah Gullah Island happened, I always have to talk about grace, really. Um, it actually, the framework for that was laid in place several years before. My husband, Ron, who's my husband on the show, that's really my husband, he had written a book. It was his first book, and it was about growing up in a Gullah Geechee community. He had interviewed lots of his elders and recorded like all these old songs and the stories, the oral histories they told him. And that was like right before I married him. And then when I married him, he had turned that into like a presentation. He's like, let's just travel. Well, let's just sing these songs and tell these stories. And so soon we were traveling around the country doing that. Had the first child, my daughter, Sarah McKeeba, and then she was in the van and we were traveling. Then I got pregnant with the second child. And I was like, you know what? Traveling with one child like this, but two, there's got to be something else. And I didn't know what the else was. We didn't know what the else was, but we knew that there was a bigger picture. We just didn't know what it was. And so like we would ask our elders, what do you think we should do? And the elders said, y'all need to stop playing and get some real jobs and settle down. Y'all had your fun. And we're like, I don't think that's it. And then one day we were having dinner with a friend. Her name was Gloria Naylor. She was an amazing novelist. She's passed now. And she introduced us to her friend, whose name was Maria Perez. And her friend was helping her do a movie. The book never became a movie. It was the novel Mama Day. And Lawrence Fishburne was going to star in it and direct it. And so she had brought Lawrence Fishburne and Maria Perez down to St. Helena Island in South Carolina, which is home. And we were eating cold chicken on somebody's porch. I'm pregnant. And Maria says, Gloria says, y'all perform and tell stories. And, maybe we could do a show about you. And that's how it happened. No agent, nobody knocking, no doors, eating cold chicken, pregnant, and knowing that I did not want to have two babies in the van on the road. And that was in the fall of 92. My son was born April 93. He flew up to New York. He threw up on one of the VPs of Nickelodeon. I was like, oh, that's it. And by November, we were pretty much on the air. I don't know how that, November 94, we were on the air. So it happened quickly. It was grace. It was what we needed. And we kind of just made it up as we went along. It was like, here's our community. Y'all come on down to Beaufort County, South Carolina. This is our neighbor. This is really Ranger Mike from the park. This is really Mr. Bradley, who's the shrimper. It was just our community. And initially they just kind of followed our lead. And then I have to honor the producers for really respecting the culture and really respecting our desire to show the culture well. And also just like you talk about your mama want what stuff she wanted you to watch. Well, there was stuff I wanted my daughter to watch, and there was nobody of color for her to watch with any consistency. I said, yeah, the only thing of people of color for preschoolers is the Smurfs. So,
Wow,
and
yeah.
Bernie was purple, but we were able to create the show that we wanted our kids to watch.
And you guys did that, and I believe it was 70. Was it 70 episodes about?
72, 72, 76, right in there, yeah. Mhm.
And
Yeah.
oh, sorry, it was a little glitch.
Mhm.
And then yeah, the family aspect. I mean, your husband, you've got your kids making cameo appearances, and like I remember watching it, and I knew that it wasn't like the set was not real per se, but
Right.
it didn't matter. I wanted to go. I wanted to go, and I wanted to be a part of it. So, if you had to take maybe one favorite moment or a couple, um, what would you pick?
Wow. There were a few. The first one that came immediately to mind, though, was first season. Simeon was just about a year old. And in this show, as you know, I always broke the fourth wall. I always talked to everybody. And we were sitting on the front lawn, the fake front lawn. And I had these little characters I'd made out of okra pods that had been made. And I was talking to my baby, Simeon, about it. And he just reached out and bit the okra. And, look, you can't script a baby.
No.
Um, Simeon was just Simeon on the set. So, I mean, that was just a lovely moment. Uh, all of it was pretty good. This was our first introduction to television. And so I think as a first introduction for it to be Gullah Gullah Island with the Presmitten Productions with the Nickelodeon people, that was good. We had all kind of family y'all didn't see behind the scenes because
Oh, really?
my daddy and my stepmom were helping with the kids when we were on set, and my auntie would travel with us. So we had what is traditionally happens, in our communities if we're blessed and lucky. But we had the whole family of them who would come in and support this project.
And I mean, did you ever think that, while you were shooting, I mean, were you just in the mindset of, getting I don't want to say the product, but just storytelling and getting good content out there? Did you maybe believe that it would resonate where it's at today?
No idea. No idea. I mean, the first couple of years we were working with a minuscule budget. Minuscule, at least what we saw, it was a minuscule budget. And we were like using our own real van. My Mary Kay friend, my friend who did Mary Kay makeup was the makeup lady for the pilot. That's how we were doing. So we shot the first few episodes, the first limited season. I think it was only like 13 episodes. And then we went home. Okay, well, that was cool. And back to our life, we thought. And then one day we were like in the mall. And somebody was like, Mr. Ron. And we're like, no, Uncle Ron. They called him Uncle Ron. We're like, who is this kid? There's this little white kid, and he's calling my husband Uncle Ron. And his parents, his daddy looks confused, and my husband's confused, but the mother was like, oh. And that's our first like inkling. Oh, okay, people are watching this. Because honestly, that was not in my mind. We were doing the show and it was fun and we got to sing. And my husband and I have been singing together since 1983 when we met.
Wow.
We old, y'all. And so, that was just fun, but we had no idea. And now these years later, we're like, wow. It's like I got a million children,
Yeah.
I keep meeting my children, my kids who came up under me, and it feels wonderful.
And I felt like some of the other shows tried to maybe not reciprocate what you guys did, but you guys were definitely the rock that kind of branched out and helped other even networks kind of get kids together. But that would be a crazy story to be in the mall and not expecting and then all of a sudden just get, hit like that. So
And it began to happen more and more, and it was interesting. Now, the biggest challenge with that was for my children.
mm,
My son starts kindergarten. We just got kindergarten, little local public school up the street. It's a nice little school. We get into kindergarten, but everybody knows him
mm.
because they grew up. They've been watching him. He doesn't even know he's on TV.
Oh wow,
He
yeah.
don't know he's on TV. He's hanging out with us. So it was. There were some challenges for my children that we had not been prepared for, and even challenges for us that we hadn't been prepared for because we didn't come from that world. You know, we were just like, this is our community. We live down here in Beaufort, South Carolina. We at the Walmart. You know,
Yeah,
um,
just living life.
just living life. We have our elders, we have our community, we have our family. That's why we're there. So there were some adjustments. Yeah.
What about, and I was trying to do a little bit of research because I had no idea on the Gullah Geechee community. Can you, because you were saying earlier about you were very happy that, when they went, there wasn't some, like this is the actual person that lives there and operates, a food truck maybe or what have you. So can you talk about the representation of the Gullah Geechee community, and if you can give a little bit of back history on it for those that aren't familiar with it?
Yeah, here's the tiny capsule version. So when we talk about Gullah Geechee, we're talking about the descendants of the West Africans who were brought here very specifically in the slave trade as part of the crop of rice. I mean, that's not the only crop they worked on, but the main cash crop on the eastern coast, certainly southeastern coast of this country, was rice. And most people don't know that the biggest rice exporter in the world was South Carolina. And it made the planters very wealthy. And of course, these are European planters who don't know anything about rice. But on the west coast of Africa, which is also sometimes known as the grain coast, they've been growing rice for centuries. So they very specifically went for people from this region of West Africa to bring them here. Now, along this coast here, it's hot and it's muggy and there's mosquitoes and there was malaria. I mean, there was just there were things here that did not make it hospitable if you were European. And so, like where I live right now, which was the center of rice production, you might say 80% of the people were African. And maintaining African cultures, even if they weren't all from the same ethnic group in West Africa, there are many, or the same language group, there are many, they were West African. And so along the coastal areas here, what we call Africanisms were maintained from the trade language or the Creole language that we call Gullah Geechee to some of the practices and beliefs. So and are maintained still to a degree here in this region. So that's what we're talking about when we talk about Gullah Geechee culture. We're talking about the Africanisms brought here in the memories of our ancestors and passed down for generations. And among those things are things like respect for elders, our self-sufficiency, our spiritual practices among them. And so it was very important to us that when the show was done, that this was honored. Here's just a little bit, like our producers and stuff, they're all from New York, and they're like, okay, so when the kid says Natalie, and I'm like, oh, no, in my community, no child is gonna walk up to me and call me Natalie. They're just not going to do that. They're going to have to put an honorific on it because that's the respect that we do in this community. And some folk, like, it's old, but that's just what we do. So I'm going to have to be Miss Natalie. I'm going to have to be Aunt Natalie, but I can't just be, a 6-year-old can't call me by my first name just because of the tradition within our community that you add an honorific of respect to an elder. So, little things like that. And at first they pushed back and then they said, oh, yeah, you're right. So, that and in the inclusion of language as we could to include some history and culture. Now, of course, we do not have giant yellow frogs, but they needed to have that kind of element. And that yellow and orange frog actually came from the executive producer, Maria Perez, who is Puerto Rican. And there are these small little yellow orange frogs that are native, I think, to the island of Puerto Rico, and she just really wanted to bring in that element as well.
It's just insane because like the fact that you guys are gone now. I mean, well, you're still there, but
Thanks. I'm
the
not
show
gone
is
yet, man.
the show is not making any more episodes, but the fact that everybody was able to come down, like you said, from New York and learn, and I mean, the people already knew about it, but like I said, kids, it's rooted. So regardless of what happens, that will always be a part of history, the Gullah Geechee, and then the way that you guys were able to incorporate it as a true learning experience. So yeah, hats off to you guys for being able to accomplish that. Um, the next thing I have is like storytelling. You and your husband, um, quite the storytellers. Like you said, you'd already been traveling, but you hadn't really thought about TV show. You guys were just doing it. So I'm curious to know your take on like the process of storytelling. Like what do you feel like? Um, I don't want to say the steps, but maybe nowadays, what do you think's missing in a good story?
Ooh, what's missing? Well, if it's a good story, nothing's missing. What a good story has always is the truth. Even if it's considered a fairy tale or folklore lore, there's a truth in it. At the center of it, there's something true. And people recognize the truth and they resonate with it. And if you, as a teller, can resonate the truth or know where the truth is, it makes that story more compelling. Um, so for me, I tell stories. In some ways, I channel stories. But you're looking for that place in the story where it matches something in the listener. And that's normally the true part. Even if, we're talking about, like, I don't know, a troll under a hill. At some point, there's something in that story about what the fear you might feel when you face the unknown that the listener goes, yeah. So you're looking for that, yeah. And that makes a good story. Everyone in my family is a storyteller in various forms. My son Simeon is an actor. You can see him on, oh dear, All American. He's been on
All
All American.
American.
Yeah. So, and he's done other things and will continue to do other things. But one of the things that we know is that you look for the truth of the character and you look for the truth in the story. Stories are how we build community. Stories are how we know where we came from. Stories are how we know who we are. Once upon a time when there was no TV and there was no all that stuff, we all kind of gathered together. And sometimes even if it wasn't traditional story, and if it was just like when your mama was your age, that's a story.
The story, yeah.
Or when you get back together after your kid, and you get back together after summer vacation, and you go, oh, there's Sally. Remember when she fell down the stairs and we thought it was funny? That's about that's the beginning of a lore. We need stories. I mean, it's one reason we watch like 5,000 zillion YouTube videos. We're looking for the story, regardless of how we access it now. And right now, most of us have a tendency to access our stories in a digital form. We still need the story. Now, for me, a lot of my storytelling has moved online because, when the panoramic happened, that's where I was. And I had been avoiding it because there's so much you cannot control when you're doing digital. You can't control the audience. Well, you can never control the audience, but
Right.
it felt very vulnerable. I love being in a space with people. I love when you are in a space telling stories because it's a cyclical thing. What happens is you might be telling a story, but you're telling it to these people and they are responding with some energy that's back to you.
Right.
And so you've got this thing going on. And sometimes what comes back to you changes the story and changes how it goes out. And so I love that. It's hard to do that in digital spaces. But stories are crucial to our humanity. They tell us who we can be. They tell us who people were. Yeah, that's crucial. All my work really is around story.
And I never thought of that. That everybody, like you said, in your family is a storyteller. But yeah, everybody has a story. regardless of the way that it's portrayed. Which kind of leads me into my last thing for you is artwork. So I've seen that you are quite the artist. Is that something that you had been doing, way, way before? Did you just pick it up? I mean, where did the artwork come
I'm the kid in kindergarten drawing pictures for the other kids.
from?
I didn't know I was an artist then, but I've always been able to see, and for me, that's what it is, because my work is very much what do I see and how does it come in and get interpreted on its way back out. But I didn't consider myself I was considered artistic, which is cool. It wasn't like, though, that's great, that'll take you far. It was like, that's very nice. Now let's get that math grade up, which I did. I was very good at math. Matter of fact, when I started college, it was math science. But when we finished Gullah Gullah Island and we returned to our community, we opened a little place out on St. Helena Island called Miss Natalie's Workshop. And it was there. I just wanted a place where folk could come in and play and be creative. And so, folk could make jewelry out of beads. I had a kiln. They could paint ceramics. They could do tie-dye. We would do all that stuff. And I began to paint furniture because that was like, it's useful. I could do that. And when the shop closed after 4 years, I ended up moving into a small studio space where I couldn't paint furniture. There's no room and had to go up on the wall. And that's when I reconnected with the kind of stuff I had been doing since a child. And I actually had forgotten. I'd forgotten that I used to make art like that.
Really? Wow.
I did. I was raising children. I was doing TV. I was performing with my husband. It's like I kept the children alive, right? So, so that was this reconnection with something that I used to love and I'd forgotten about. And so like probably about 2010, I reconnected with that. And then I went back to get a master's in creativity theory, just because I didn't know what to do with myself. And as I began to study more about that, my work began to change. And what you see now is part of that, just that evolution. Mm-hmm. And I love it. You're in my art studio right now. It's not real neat because I'm working in here.
I would be worried if it was neat.
Yeah, good. You do not have to worry.
Yeah, I mean, that's fantastic to to tap in, and I totally understand that, life and not maybe having a chance to, fully get into what you wanted. And I see your husband as well with the pound cakes. So I'm sure those are, lovely as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, just the lasting thoughts. I really appreciate you coming on, and the fact that you guys again had the true family. I mean, it wasn't an actor, somebody you didn't know. It was legit, and I think that that's something that's missing, and it's special to be able to have everybody a part of it. And then, like you were telling me, the people that were helping taking care of the kids. And so just what a blessing for everybody to have a piece of it. I greatly appreciate you. You were one of my inspirations without even knowing it. Like I said, I just watched the show, and I think you guys, it made people really think about treating people the right way, especially if they don't look like you. And then getting outside of that box and not being afraid to learn. And, that's what I try to instill in my kids every day. So again, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for having me. I've enjoyed it. And you talk about family, that's important. That's like right up there in the center of my values here. Family and community.
Oh, and lastly, the artwork. Where can people find the artwork?
Okay, let me tell you about the stuff. Okay. So you can see my artwork on at Natalie Daise Art. Put it as one word, nataliedaiseart.com. I have a children's book coming out in the fall, and you can pre-order it. And I will hope that folk will, because you know how it is with the first book. The more people who pre-order, the more they're going to print. And the name of the book is Okra Stew, a Gullah Geechee celebration. And you can find it. You can do it on Amazon or Barnes & Noble. You can pre-order, and it's by Natalie Daise. Let's see. Last thing. I have I I did a class called 40 Days to Developing Your Creative Practice, and it's a spiritual approach because I call creativity my spiritual practice. So
Okay.
this course, which is a 40 modules with two lessons in each module, will be available for folk to buy and participate in at their own pace. I did it live in 2021, and I'm now packaging it and making it available. You'll be able to find it on my website when it's ready. And also, you can follow me on Instagram at Gullah Mama, GullahMama, and you'll get all the stuff there too.
Sounds great. And I will put that down in the comment section below. So in case you don't remember exactly what she was saying, don't worry.
I said a lot of
For
stuff.
you. We'll put it in there. But yeah, Miss Natalie, thank you so much. Again, appreciate you. And yeah, you're welcome back on anytime.
Thank you, Mike. I've enjoyed it.